What you just witnessed is a man who has descended into the darkest depths of loneliness and psychosis. In his fractured world, the life-size mannequin he stole from the department store has transformed into a living woman, a lover and companion that he always dreamt of. This is a scene from the 1962 film Vaxdockan, translated to the Wax Doll in English, a movie so disturbing. At its time it was banned in England. Please like and subscribe if you've yet to do so, as we delve into the hauntingly depressing story of the doll. The movie begins by a monologue by our protagonist Lundgren. He talks on how he feels alone and like no one cares about him. When he sees a couple, he only feels more alone and jealous. He describes the building he's living in as a ramshackle, but he doesn't really care since he sleeps all day, working as a night watchman which only fuels his loneliness. It's also here where we get the movie's main theme, a very haunting and eerie song that describes both Lundgren and this whole movie's theme perfectly. He walks past his neighbors who are offering apples to people, since they have picked too many. He goes to pet a cat, but the cat hisses and scratches his hand. As he isolates himself, we see his neighbor was hiding his girlfriend in what I think is a window. Meanwhile, Lundgren is laying in the bed, staring at water damage in the ceiling, which takes form into a woman he's dreaming of. It's only when he's in his fantasies we catch a glimpse of a genuine smile on his lips. As his imagination gets clearer, he quickly stands up to talk to the ceiling where he had imagined this woman. While he's caressing and speaking to the stain in the ceiling, his neighbors are getting frisky. We quickly cut away to Lundgren putting on his uniform, ready to start his shift. While walking through the night of the capital of Stockholm, he sees a couple making out. First he simply passes the couple like a normal person, but his urges and desires take over, and he goes back to stare at them. Which angers the couple who tell him to get lost. Then just seconds after, he stops and gawks at the woman who politely smiles at him. He doesn't say anything, but he just smiles awkwardly and walks away. He walks into a department store full of mannequins. He hears a sound and goes to investigate. It seems like we have two intruders who are trying to get away. But Lundgren gets too focused on one of the dolls who tipped over. He starts fantasizing and asking the doll caringly if she hurt herself falling. He goes to report the break-in, but he also decides to hide the doll away in a cellar. As the authorities arrive, he claims that the burglar stole a doll, but the cops rightfully get suspicious and ask how he could have known that. So he quickly comes up with a lie that he saw the intruder carrying it while running away. Here's another one of those scenes I found darkly hilarious. As the cops ask for descriptions of the intruder, Lundgren starts gushing about how gorgeous he found the doll. He manages to run all the way home with the doll and hides her in the basement at first as he hears a sound. A boy named Robert is carrying water down the stairs so he can give water to his guinea pigs. And it's here where it's good that I'm a native Swedish speaker, because what in the hell is a China pig? Well, his mother tells him off and he gets a little smack. As the coast is clear, Lundgren bolts upstairs with the doll, but doesn't notice a hand is left behind. He starts speaking to the doll like she was a real person, welcoming her into his room and offering a seat. As the doll is seated, we get an intense stare from Lundgren, who changes his mind about the approach and puts her in bed instead. And it's there he notices the missing hand.
Damn it, Robert! Leave them fucking China pigs alone!
As Robert calls for Håkansson, Lundgren quickly swipes up the evidence, and as he's walking back up, he overhears the kid rambling on with his youthful imagination about how there was blood everywhere on the walls and stairs and a chopped off human hand. His sister is furious, thinking it was all a lie, and doesn't believe him, so he gets another smack on the cheek.
Ja, men det gjorde väl ingenting. Ett lik i källaren. Så jag bär mig åt. Så är du så här snäll är jag.
With the mannequin's hand in place, Lundgren gives the doll a quick peck, asking the doll if it was okay to do so. And then, like a gentleman, decides to sit on a chair and stare at her all night. The next day we are introduced to the building's landlady, Miss Karlberg. She is warning a resident about the cats who scratched Lundgren's hand yesterday. The resident fits the role of a crazy cat lady pretty well, being offended at the cats being called animals. But I can't really judge since I'm the same with my little kitty.
Herr Lundgren, god dag herr Lundgren, hur är det med handen?
Med handen?
Ja.
The landlady seems to care about Lundgren quite a bit, speaking in a very caring and almost motherly tone. A stark contrast to the firm tone she used with the cat lady. But Lundgren seems to be quite oblivious to this, either due to his own insecurity about himself, or it's because of her scar on her cheek. I am more entitled to believe that it's because of his insecurity, not being able to imagine someone caring for him. We saw a woman smile quite warmly at him during his night shift, but he didn't attempt to talk to her and just scurried away. Lundgren returns to his apartment with flowers for his new wax-made lover. He turns on the stove and we get a pretty unnerving scene.
Ska inte vara rädd, ser du. Kommer inte göra ont. Du behöver inte säga någonting. Du ska inte säga någonting. gör mig så oändligt glad.
Then, Lundgren starts to smear melted butter on the doll's arm.
Så, ligg still. Så.
This is also the first time we see any life in the doll. The doll winces in pain in a monotone voice, and a small tear builds up in the doll's eye. The next day, some work buddies at the cafe tease Lundgren since he has to get 2 cookies in a bag. Noticing he seems to be newly in love, Lundgren seems quite embarrassed and tries to keep everything as vague as possible.
Rosor på kinden och solsken i blick. Och det är 5:00 på morgonen. Han verkar nyförälskad.
When he returns, he serves the coffee and cookies. Lundgren tries to impress on the doll by saying he bashes criminals' teeth in, and takes his pistol and acts like James Bond.
Pang! Rädd?
But his childish side is quickly replaced with a somber thought.
Absolut ingenting. Det är precis vad de tänker om mig.
As he says the pistol is nothing, just a thing, just like what he is. This quickly turns into a small breakdown where he claims to not be crazy and begs the doll to give him her hand.
Bara hade varit levande. Om det rådde på dig. Om du bara kunde räcka med handen. Räck med handen då. Räck med handen. Vem har sagt att du inte kan? Om jag bara hade haft dig så skulle jag varit någonting, så skulle jag gjort någonting.
After this, he bluntly asks if she wants more coffee like nothing had happened.
Mer kaffe.
Suddenly when Lundgren says, "You'd never think that I could be something, right?" The doll lets out a soft giggle.
Kan du väl inte tänka dig?
In the other room, the same neighbor who was hiding his girlfriend in a window at the start of the movie is playing around with his girlfriend.
Satan också. Jag är inte så van vid att lägga damor.
För att vara här, för så gjorde du riktigt skapligt.
Skratta inte åt mig.
Suddenly the woman goes quiet as she can hear talking from Lundgren's apartment. Lundgren whines to the doll for laughing at him and continues to mumble and speak. The couple tries to ignore it, but then he starts shouting.
Vem talar han med? En flicka?
En flicka? Hos honom?
The man doesn't think much of Lundgren, as he quickly dismisses his girlfriend's thought that there may be a girl at Lundgren's place immediately. It's after this we get the disturbing scene I showed in the intro. The doll is starting to turn real in Lundgren's head, and this makes him utterly ecstatic, laughing with so much glee and joy. But in this situation and context, this joy is so utterly terrifying, since it's from here on out, Lundgren's fantasies have successfully taken over, and Lundgren stops knowing what is fantasy, and loses his perception of reality. Also, my previous video was fittingly about something called tulpas, and in many ways, the doll here is Lundgren's tulpa. It's an object he has treated like a human for so long due to his desperation and longing for companionship that the doll has started talking and touching him in his fantasies. If you are curious to learn more on this topic, I will leave a link for my previous video in the description. The next day, as Lundgren is going to buy the doll some clothes at a woman's lingerie store, the clerk starts humiliating Lundgren and making the other ladies who's shopping laugh at him. So he quickly leaves, being absolutely mortified. When he comes home, we get a shot of the landlady who is probably going to ask for the rent money. But meanwhile, Lundgren starts seeing the doll move, happily exclaiming that she is awake.
Du är vaken.
He asks her about the well-being, and the doll, even though a little robotic and still well mannequin-like, is able to respond and even move.
Så vacker röst du har.
Det har du också.
Jag låter ju som en skata. Jag ser ut som en gråsparv.
As Lundgren's insecurities start appearing due to her compliment about his voice, she quickly shuts it down and makes him feel loved for probably the first time in his adult life.
Som du ska.
The doll starts walking through the apartment, getting more flexible, and says she doesn't care that he didn't get any clothes for her. She says that she wants to have his coat because it is his and smells of him.
Är din. Den luktar så gott. Precis som du.
The doll claims she wants everything to be like it is just right now, appeasing every single one of Lundgren's worries and insecurities, being the perfect fantasy woman that he always had dreamt of. But their tender moment is interrupted with a knock on the door. It's the landlady, gently asking Lundgren about the rent money. Lundgren, wanting to go back to his fantasies as soon as possible, shuts the door in her face rudely. But she knocks again, asking if he is well, but he quickly dismisses her again and returns to the doll.
Värdinnan, hon har gått nu. Hon har gått nu. Du.
But the doll is now, well, a doll, and not moving and talking like she was previously in his mind. So he assures her that nobody will find her, and to not be scared. But still the doll is not moving or talking. Later, when Lundgren is about to go to work, a neighbor who I am assuming is drunk by his mannerisms speaks about how well off he is, who can go away at any time he wants, and lives in privacy on the highest floor. As Lundgren is about to leave, the man insists on keeping the conversation going and asks him why a woman would want a man.
Det är inte för att få en make, inte. Det är bara som hon säger.
The man claims that women are only out to get fridges, TV sets and expensive mats.
Och dyra mattor på golvet.
And if a woman doesn't get that, she will just lay there in silence.
Vad gör hon då, tror ni? Jo då, min vän. Då ligger hon där utan att säga ett skvatt. Styv och stel som en gädda.
Lundgren of course thinks this is why the doll stopped talking to him. So while on duty, he steals a bracelet a woman accidentally drops while getting into a cab. After that, he quickly goes back home in a cab to bring the bracelet to the doll. Why he couldn't wait until the end of his shift, I'm not sure.
Brinner det? Va?
Eller är det kanske någon som väntar?
The couple are nosy as hell and gossip to themselves about Lundgren, and even outright ask him when he comes back if someone is up there waiting for him. Anyways, he puts the bracelet on the doll and the doll becomes alive again, loving the expensive bracelet he gave her.
Ja, vad tycks? Vackert?
Ja, mycket.
But what she loves more is him, and we will get this very beautiful scene of him describing his longing for her and being able to have a real home.
Om du visste hur jag har längtat efter det ordet. Hem. Tänk att jag kan inte fatta det. Om du visste vad jag har längtat efter någon att komma hem till. Innan jag fann dig så... Det var ingenting. Men så jag visste att en dag...
Ja.
Den dag jag fann dig.
Which is so bittersweet considering the real world. This is just a guy talking to a doll.
Om jag förstår. Du får inte gå ifrån mig.
Men jag går ju inte från dig. Jag kommer ju tillbaka. Jag ska ju till jobb.
The doll refuses Lundgren to leave, holding him in place, telling him no one would miss him but her.
Lugn. Så. Ligg här och vänta på mig.
Du får inte gå ifrån mig. Det är ingen som kommer att sakna dig. Ingen annan än jag. Ingen annan än jag.
Alltid.
Vad som än händer.
Hallå, det är...
So he skips work and the next day Lundgren fakes being sick to be with her all day.
Jag måste anmäla förfall på grund av sjukdom.
Again we see this deep care the landlady has for Lundgren, telling him to go to bed and take care of himself.
Lundgren var sjuk i alla fall. Vad var det jag sa?
Ja, det är inte så farligt.
Jo, men herr Lundgren ser inte alls kry ut. Nu ska herr Lundgren gå upp och lägga sig. Och så säg bara till om det är någonting jag kan stå till tjänst med. Jo, men herr Lundgren kanske inte orkar gå ut och köpa sin mat själv. Ja, men säg bara till.
But again she is shut down. Lundgren then goes up and brags about his position and how valued he is as a watchman.
Jag förstår att du är
The doll says, I can see that you are valuable, and shakes her expensive bracelet he stole. Lundgren laughs pridefully, saying that he has his connections, which makes the doll very jealous. Which Lundgren adores because he knows he is jealous because of love, not like others who are jealous because of hate and evil.
Vad är det för roligt med det?
Jag tycker om när du är det, för du är det av kärlek. Det är sant. Men så finns andra som är svartsjuka utav hat. Av ondska. Svartsjuka på mig därför att jag är annorlunda. Fula och ensamma människor. Fula och ensamma människor förstår ingenting.
It's here where I think he may be referring to the landlady, claiming that lonely and ugly people don't understand anything. Which leads me to believe maybe it wasn't because of his insecurity that he never understood the landlady cared about him. It was because of her appearance, with the scar, and her loneliness, that he never valued that care. I'll talk more about this later in the video, of course. Anyways, Lundgren and the doll start dancing and singing, and the landlady who has come up with a tray of food hears this. How can Lundgren, who is claiming to be sick, be dancing and singing like a madman in his room? So she knocks rapidly. The doll doesn't want to stop dancing and playfully bangs on the door, exclaiming, I want to go out to the world.
Jag kan nog också knacka, ja. Jag vill in i världen, innan människorna. In i världen, innan människorna.
sluta nu, sluta! Du får inte hålla på så här, du får inte.
Kom in alla människor. Kom in till mig.
Du får inte. Jag älskar dig. Jag vill inte missa dig. Du får inte.
After Lundgren stops her, the doll becomes cold and distant, due to either not being let out, or thinking Lundgren was ashamed to let anyone see her.
Om du bara kunde säga varför. Har jag gjort något fel? Vill du att de skulle komma in här?
He tries to explain if they were caught, they would have taken her away from him, and in a moment of self-reflection, he says they would have probably taken him away too. Lundgren has fallen asleep while brewing coffee.
Men om han nu är sjuk så kanske han vill vara i fred.
Nappvakten har dödat sig. Han har dödat sig med gas.
Du håll tyst med det.
Du inte skäms.
Ja, öppnar han inte för den ena så öppnar han väl inte för den andra.
Nej, men det luktar ju faktiskt gas.
Va?
Men han kan väl inte ha...
The man quickly runs to the door. Since Lundgren doesn't answer, he is forced to break the door down. Luckily for Lundgren, he was too distracted to turn off the stove, so Lundgren had the chance to cover the doll with a blanket. But of course, Robert has to be nosy and annoying like usual and comments that there is a corpse in the bed. But the man is fed up with the kid's imagination and shuts that idea down quick.
Han har dödat någon.
Nu tiger du, nu är det nog. Uppfattat. Ut! Där grabben har lik på hjärnan. Lik och lejon och jag vet inte vad.
Förstår inte var han fick det ifrån.
After the man leaves, Lundgren apologizes profusely to the doll for hiding her. He says he knows he is a coward, but he will make it up to her, promising her to show her off to
Jag ska
everyone.
tala om för dem att du är här. Jag ska visa upp det. Jag ska göra dem avundsjuka. Jag ska visa hur vacker du är.
But she needs some clothing for this, and he gets an idea of a fur coat. He tells the lady tenant and the landlord about his lover, but he does forget to mention that, I don't know, she's made out of wax.
Ja, inte till mig själv förstås, utan till en dam. Till min dam, om ni tillåter.
Men man kanske får lov att gratulera. Hur länge har herr Lundgren känt henne?
Alltid. Fast hon har bara bott några dagar hos mig.
One of them asks what her name is, and Lundgren freezes. He has no idea.
Ja, det vet jag faktiskt inte.
After this, he gets really weird and awkward and leaves.
Fröken Karlberg, jag ska göra det. Ja, tack så hjärtligt, fröken Karlberg. Ja, adjö.
Meanwhile, our favorite nosy couple is gossiping about Lundgren again. The girl realizes the lock must be broken, since the other guy broke in to save him. So they sneak into his apartment to find what he is hiding. After finding the mannequin, they are bewildered, but they steal the bracelet and run out.
Ta det bara.
Törs jag visst ta det.
Lundgren returns with the fur coat he promised, and here the doll is seriously pissed off, roasting the shit out of Lundgren.
Den är inte äkta.
Vad säger du?
Den Den är inte äkta. Den är falsk. Precis som du är falsk. Och allt vad du säger är falskt. Och allt som har med dig att göra är falskt och falskt och falskt.
Here we see a very different character than the one we first saw. At the start of the movie, the doll claimed to only want Lundgren and was okay with just wearing his work coat. But now we see someone, or rather something, completely different. Instead of a fantasy woman who removed all insecurity in him, she is now someone who sees him just as low as he sees himself. Lundgren completely breaks here, crying his eyes out but then suddenly stopping. He notices that the bracelet is gone. Looking furious, he asks where the bracelet is.
Var är armbandet? Var är armbanden? Har det varit någon här medan jag var...
He knows the only one who could have stolen the bracelet was the couple, and here we see one of the cruelest scenes I've ever seen.
Varför kunde inte lämna henne i fred?
Åh, i helvete! Kom,
Skit armbandet. Ge mig armbandet, säger man annars så.
kom med här.
The guy who I just now realized had a name, Mr. Fredriksson, blackmails Lundgren, saying that they will send him away to a loony bin without his little toy if he reports the stolen bracelet to the police. Then the man starts touching the doll inappropriately while Lundgren is forced to watch, as the doll in his mind begs for him to not let the man do this to her.
Låt honom inte.
The doll whimpers and after the man leaves begs for his help. Lundgren begs for her to tell him what to do to make things right, but the doll keeps crying and whimpering. Then he gets an idea and goes and gets his pistol.
Lundgren.
Fredriksson is back with just an arm cast, surviving the gunshot and the only damage from the shot only being his arm being broken. Fredriksson, being an asshole, makes Lundgren sound like an absolute pervert and lunatic. Well, he kinda is, but still, fuck that guy. He gathers everyone so he can show Lundgren's disturbing secret to them. As they walk in, instead of showing fear or embarrassment, Lundgren smiles confidently, telling them to please come inside. He tells the doll that she will now finally be introduced to his neighbors. But things obviously don't go the way he imagined things to go.
En stulen skyltdocka. En stulen päls.
Lundgren begs the doll to tell everyone she loves him. As the doll doesn't respond, he grows more and more desperate and unhinged.
Säg någonting så att de förstår. Du ska hålla om mig. Se på mig. Varför talar du inte om för dem att det var sant?
When everyone has left in disgust or being too weirded out, his mental breakdown gets worse. He snaps and throws the doll in the ground, shattering her.
Du har lurat mig hela tiden! Du har lurat! Du vet varför! Du kunde ha talat om för dem att det var sant. Du sa inte ett ord. Du sa inte ett ord. Inte ett ord! Inte ett ord! En docka! En docka
It's
utan
here he
hjärta.
finally realizes she was just a doll. But then he goes back to his fantasies, claiming he killed her.
Vad har jag gjort? Jag har dödat henne.
And here we get an absolutely stellar performance from the late Per Oscarsson. We get a deep insight on the landlady's own loneliness as she talks to, well, that thing. I really like how this is shot with her scar in the mirror. Lundgren, now with the doll pieces in a suitcase, goes and tosses it all in a river to get rid of forever. But when he comes home, we get what I call the most disturbing scene of the whole movie. This genuinely made me feel so fucking uneasy. The doll explains, as long as he is alive, he will never get rid of her. His fantasies forever there to torture him, even if he doesn't want them to.
Du trodde du hade gjort dig av med mig. Du trodde du var fri nu. Men mig slipper du inte så lätt. Mig slipper du aldrig. Du kan inte leva utan mig. Jag kan inte dö utan dig.
And after that, the movie ends with Lundgren sitting broken on the floor, as we get the movie's main theme again. Vaxdockan is an unsettling exploration of loneliness, mental health and the fragility of the human mind. Lundgren's descent into delusion is portrayed with harrowing realism, making his situation both sad and horrifying. Per Oscarsson delivers a masterful performance, capturing the nuances of a man on the edge of sanity. The film's use of shadow cinematography and depressing setting creates a very claustrophobic, gloomy but also absurd atmosphere. This movie really lingers in the mind long after watching. In many ways, Vaxdockan serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of isolation and the human need for connection. Lundgren's tragic story is a reminder of the devastating consequences when that need goes unmet. I also really like the relationship between Lundgren and the landlady. At first I mentioned that I believed the reason Lundgren was oblivious to genuine care was because of his own insecurities, thinking she didn't like him because no one else did. But after rewatching I really think It's more of his dismissiveness towards her stems from her physical appearance, particularly her facial scar, which Lundgren seems to subconsciously associate with her unworthiness. This reflects on his own skewed values and deep-rooted insecurities. In his mind, love and companionship are tied to perfection and fantasy qualities he assigns to the doll, not to a real person like Miss Karlberg. Ironically, it is the landlady who offers him genuine care and understanding he so desperately seeks. Yet he remains oblivious to it and chooses the doll over her. In the end, the dynamic between Lundgren and Miss Karlberg serves as a quiet commentary on the destructionness of internalized insecurities and the tragedy of missed opportunities of human connection in a world filled with shared loneliness. The doll represents an unattainable fantasy. The landlady stands as a symbol of the real, albeit imperfect, connections that Lundgren fails to see. I really hope you enjoyed this video. It by far took me the longest to make. If you made it this far, I want to give you a huge thank you from the deepest parts of my heart.